Oh hey, you caught me right as I was about to start eating lunch. I really wanted to start eating healthier this year, so I went to the store and I picked up some discount bananas. Unfortunately, all they had at the store were greatest hits bananas, but I'm sure they're perfectly safe to eat. Why was that a greatest hit? That banana sucked!
Once again, it's time to cosplay as super shallow Tinder members and start judging video game consoles by their box art. Last time we took a look at the Xbox box art, so it's only fitting to take a look at Microsoft's direct competition. Wrong one. No, the other one. The other one. There we go.
Now, as I jump into the PlayStation 1, a lot of you are probably expecting me to cover these, the classic Sony jewel cases for the PlayStation 1. And although these are definitely going to be covered in this video, they weren't the first, because at first, Sony decided to go with a slightly different design. And they have not apologized for it yet.
The original PS1 games came in the exact same plastic tall jewel cases as the Sega CD and Saturn games. And just like those, they're incredibly fragile, hence why I only have one of them to show. I physically couldn't find another one in the wild near me. I would have to order one online and risk it getting damaged in shipping, which is very easy to do considering the fact that these cases break when you breathe on them. They don't fit properly in my shelves either. It's just such a Goliath huge case for such a small little CD. I don't know what Sony was thinking. Maybe they thought a bigger case was a better value. But you want to know what's hilarious? After this, before they went to the standard jewel cases, they had a cardboard version. As if this wasn't fragile enough, the cardboard version would disintegrate in front of your very eyes. Needless to say, I couldn't track one of those down either. But let's move on to the actual jewel cases for the PlayStation 1. These look awesome. Sony definitely nailed the design of them. The nice PlayStation banner on the left, the cool little gray insert in the plastic transparent section, the back of the box telling you everything you need to know, and the spine being super minimalistic, yet incredibly enticing. I really like these cases. And unlike the monolith first design cases, you can actually comfortably fit these on a shelf next to each other, and they all look uniform and nice. Now everyone knows about the greatest hits PS1 cases with the green spines and red font. Everyone shits on these. But is it kind of wrong that I prefer these to the original black cases? Hear me out. These were definitely products of their time. You would never see this kind of thing releasing nowadays. It's way too 90s and neon, but that's what I love about it. It has so much character compared to the standard PS1 cases, and don't get me wrong, I like those too. I think they look great. But the amount of pizzazz and sparkle that these cases have just because of their green and black nature makes them really appealing to me. They stick out, but kind of in a good way. Maybe it's because of my love of Monster Energy, but I definitely don't mind the green and black on the shelf together. I think they look pretty cool. I'm 100% willing to admit that I'm in the minority here. Everyone hates these cases. I understand why. They look different, they stick out, but I like the look of them. Now, something I don't see discussed online really at all is the third variant for the CD-style PS1 cases. Yeah, believe it or not, they tried again, and this time they used white, which doesn't look as nice. It just looks like they were trying to be cheap and save on ink. I like how the spines blend in with the normal Black Label games, but something about this just sticks out in the wrong way. These were normally bundled together as collector's PS1 sets when Sony was pushing the PS1 to be a great budget system when the PlayStation 2 was on the way. And speaking of which, next up is the PlayStation 2 box art. And my friends, I think we've done it. I think we found the perfect box art, at least with the DVD style cases, but everything is so perfectly proportioned on these things. You have the 1-inch header up top, which doesn't take up very much space and has plenty of room for the cover art. The spine has a little PlayStation insignia at the top and about 2 inches worth of logo, which is perfect. The backs were basically open books. As long as you had the legal shit that you had to include on games back in the day, Sony really didn't care. You were able to do whatever you wanted with this box. It was awesome. Now, certain publishers adopted specific spine styles, such as all the LucasArts spines being yellow, and a lot of special edition PS2 games came in these awesome steelbook cases, which were way ahead of their time and look exactly like the normal plastic cases. They don't look out of place at all on your shelf. There's this special kind of synergy that happens when the third-party companies and the first-party ones all have the exact same design philosophy when designing their cases. Unfortunately, you know Sony's greatest hits cases? Well, they struck back with a vengeance. I didn't order pumpkin spice. For some reason, they changed the color scheme from the nice green, red, and black to just red. Now, they're not too bad on the eyes, but if you have a bunch of them on your shelf, you'll be able to spot them from a nautical mile away. The red is so bright, it looks like you can pick these up with a fucking thermal camera. Now, the red cases themselves aren't inherently a bad thing. What is a bad thing about them is the lack of consistency with them. Sometimes they have a little white stroke around the logo up top and on the spines. Sometimes they don't. Sometimes they have this stroke on both the top and the bottom. Sometimes they don't. You see, this is my biggest problem with the PS2's greatest hits, is the lack of consistency. crazy. It seems like every publisher wanted their own opinion out there of how a greatest hits game should look, when in reality, they all look bad compared to the original black ones. Now, to be fair, I do think that they're a lot more appealing looking than the platinum hits on Xbox and Player's Choice on GameCube, but they're still not ideal. The PS2 generation was just so quirky for a number of reasons. Sometimes they had slipcovers on them that served absolutely no purpose. These slipcovers tell you nothing that the main case doesn't already tell you. I genuinely wonder why these are here. And halfway through the greatest hits generation, they changed the color of the red very slightly. I used to think that half my greatest hits games were sun-bleached, but that can't be a coincidence. Overall, the PS2 era was a really good era for box design. It just sucks that the greatest hits never looked as good as the original black cases. And there's only so much a can of Rust-Oleum can do. Enter the PlayStation 3 box art. I hate it. I don't like how the red box contrasts with every spine it's on. I don't like how it's vertical when the rest of the spine is horizontal. And to top it all off, it uses the fucking Spider-Man 3 font. Why do you enjoy hurting me? When the PS3 Slim came out, they redesigned the boxes to fit in more line with its current branding, and my god, this is how you do it. This looks so much cleaner and better. They didn't have to do the front cover. As long as the spines were all changed to something better, I would have been happy, but the front cover looks great too. Sony stuck with this cover design for a really long time, and as a result, this is what the bulk of the PS3's library looks like, and in my opinion, it looks great. Simple, clean, and good. Of course, next up, Sony introduced their greatest hits line, and, I guess Sony thought that the fall-themed spines of the PlayStation 2 weren't enough, so they decided to make the entire fucking case red. This looks awful, and it sticks out like a sore thumb whenever you have a greatest hits game among your other PS3 titles. When I buy a greatest hits PS3 game, the first thing I do when I get home is throw that shit in a normal clear shell. This looks so much better. Now, for most people, this is where the story ends. These are the 3 cover variants that the PlayStation 3 has. But what if I told you that there is a lesser known 4th cover variant out there? And what if I told you that it was a fucking abomination? Yeah, for some reason, towards the PlayStation 4's launch, Sony decided that they wanted this weird brand synergy between the PS3 and 4 and made all of the spines the same color. It kinda looks okay, but it clashes so badly with the red and black spines that I think it's honestly kind of absurd. I feel like this confused a lot of consumers into accidentally buying PS3 games for their PS4 or vice versa, and I think Sony realized they fucked up too, because after this era, all of Sony's official first-party games went back to the black label. So here at last is the full family of PlayStation 3 cover variants, all 4. Oh wait, I missed one. For some absolutely hilarious yet still completely unknown reason, Sony released a 5th cover variant for the PlayStation 3, this time in a nice gold wrap. PlayStation 3 Favoritos, I believe that this was catered towards the Spanish market, and looks fucking hideous. It sticks out so badly from the other titles, and it honestly kind of looks hilarious. This is an official variant by Sony. This?
I feel like I'm gonna have a stroke, so before we hop into the PlayStation 4 and PlayStation 5, let's take a quick handheld break.
The PSP cases are basically just miniature PS2 cases. They're actually kind of cute. They're not constructed super well. That's my only real criticism about them. The discs will fall out on occasion, and the little clasps to hold the manuals in don't do a very good job. But overall, in terms of design, I really like the PSP box art. Now, games weren't the only thing released on the UMD discs. They also released some movies and concerts. Here I have Green Day's Bullet in a Bible. This looks okay too. I like how the spine differentiates it from a game so no one thinks you're playing a Green Day video game. That came later, and nobody bought it. That makes me sad. Let's move on to the PS Vita. These are awesome. A definite step up from the PSP in pretty much every way. It holds the games in far better. As a matter of fact, I think it holds them in a little too good. These things have an iron grip on the cartridges. The boxes being so small was absolutely a good move in hindsight, because that means a lot of people were more inclined to bring complete in-box copies of Vita games with them wherever they went, as opposed to losing the boxes and bringing the loose cartridges everywhere. That's why you typically see Nintendo DS games and PSP UMDs loose as opposed to complete in box. Vita games, on the other hand, are far more common complete in box. A lot of people say these look like baby PS4 boxes, and to be honest, I don't think it's fair to say that. I think it's fair to say that the PS4 boxes look like grown-up Vita boxes, because the Vita came out first. The PS4 came out in 2013, as you probably all remember, but the Vita came out all the way back in 2011, so this was absolutely a good move in terms of brand synergy for Sony. Overall, the PSP and PS Vita boxes are both excellent. I don't really have a problem with either of them other than the construction of the PSP boxes. I'll take the Vita boxes overall just because I think it's cute walking around with a tiny PS4 box in your pocket. Alright, enough waffle, let's get to the main event. The PS4 case, like I said before, is basically the same thing as a bigger version of the PlayStation Vita case, but they decided to make it a little transparent and the plastic a little bit thinner. I like the transparent plastic, I don't like how thin it is. It's very fragile. Next time you're at GameStop, look through the PlayStation 4 used section and see how many of those cases are beaten to hell, and I can guarantee you that's just from normal usage. These cases are incredibly thin and cheap, which is a shame because I think that the standard blue PS4 cases look genuinely awesome. The PS4 generation was also the first generation to fully do away with manuals. There are some exceptions here and there, but it's very few and far between. As a consolation prize, a lot of first and third party developers have taken it upon themselves to put art on the inside of the case. Sometimes, if you're really lucky, you can find a reversible cover, and sometimes the reversible covers are even better than the main ones. I'm all for it, I just wish it was standardized across the entire platform, because opening up a random PlayStation 4 game and not seeing art on the inside is a little depressing. You know what's not depressing for once though? The greatest hits games. Yeah, the red case is still an issue, but you can get blue cases in bulk for dirt cheap. Another cool thing about these greatest hits games is the fact that the spine isn't really affected all too much. They add a little splash of red in back of the logo, but the header isn't really touched at all. As a matter of fact, the only place the header is touched is on the front cover, where it has a little banner underneath it just telling you it's a greatest hits game. It's awesome. Because of this, you can very comfortably put greatest hits PS4 games into blue cases and they will look great in your collection. Nothing will look off, nothing will stand out. Yeah, I'm pretty comfortable in saying this. The entire PlayStation 4 generation in terms of packaging was absolutely excellent. How did Sony fuck it up? Well, the PlayStation 5 boxes suck. They're just reused PlayStation 4 boxes with the white spines that I already didn't like from the PlayStation 1. That's one thing I wasn't expecting them to bring back. Even less of the insides of these have artwork now, and it's so boring opening them up to find them blank. And I get not wanting to use blue again, but Sony, what about black, yellow, green, literally any other color but white? It just looks like you're not trying. It looks like I could print this out in my inkjet printer. Now, we don't have a greatest hits PS5 box design yet, but I have high hopes that it actually might be better than the standard one. But until then, I guess we're just gonna have to keep speculating. But that was every single PlayStation box ever released in North America, at least as far as I know.
But enough about that, let's get back to my lunch. I returned to the banana and I decided to get an organic orange instead. Now I took the peel off around 8 seconds ago, so it should be nice and safe and fresh.